It was one of those nights in Washington City when the rain didn't just fall. It poured down as if the entire sky had decided to break open. I was 27 then, walking home after a long day, my umbrella fighting against the fierce wind. The streets were almost deserted. The sound of rushing water filled the air, drowning out the faint honks of distant cars. I remember thinking how lonely the city looked under the storm. Neon signs blurred into glowing streaks on wet sidewalks, and puddles reflected a broken version of the world above. That's when I heard it, an ugly, sharp screech of tires, followed by a deafening crash. My heart leapt into my throat. I turned and saw, a few blocks ahead, a car smashed into a streetlight. The metal was bent, smoke rising faintly from under the hood. There was no one else around. No pedestrians, no cars slowing down to help. For a second, I froze, caught between fear and instinct. Then my legs moved before I even realized. I was running, splashing through water, the rain stabbing against my skin. When I reached the car, I saw her. She was slumped forward, her hair damp and sticking to her face. Even through the shattered glass and the chaos of the accident, I could see her features, delicate, beautiful, but pale with shock. Her hands trembled slightly against the steering wheel, and when her head turned just a little, I saw her eyes. Blue, the kind of blue that could silence the world around you. And in that instant, standing in the storm, my chest tightened. I didn't know her name, who she was, or why fate had thrown her into my path, but I felt it. The unexplainable pull, a connection. It was as if time paused for me to take one long, unforgettable look. "Miss, can you hear me?" I shouted, trying to open the damaged door. The rain drowned my voice, but her faint groan told me she was alive. I yanked at the handle, metal grinding under my grip, until finally it gave way. Carefully, I reached in, my umbrella falling uselessly to the ground as I focused only on her. Her lips moved, whispering something I couldn't catch. She looked scared, vulnerable, and in that moment, all I wanted was to keep her safe. "It's okay," I said, my voice softer now. "I've got you." With effort, I unbuckled her seatbelt and lifted her into my arms. She felt weightless, fragile, as if the storm itself could carry her away if I let go. Her head rested weakly against my chest, and I could feel the shallow rhythm of her breathing. I rushed her through the rain toward the nearest cab stand I remembered seeing earlier. My heart pounded, not just from fear for her, but from something else, something I couldn't name. When I shouted for help, a cab finally screeched to a stop. The driver looked shocked at the sight of her, but I climbed in, cradling her carefully. "Nearest hospital, hurry!" I barked. As the cab sped through slick roads, I glanced down at her face again. Water dripped from my hair onto her, and I gently brushed it away from her forehead. Her eyes fluttered open just once, those ocean blue irises locking onto mine in a fragile, hazy moment. And then, faintly, she smiled. That single look burned into me, a warmth in the middle of the cold, chaotic night. By the time we reached the hospital, I was drenched, my hands trembling as I carried her inside. Nurses rushed forward, placing her on a stretcher, voices filling the air with urgent instructions. I stepped back, my chest heaving as they wheeled her away. I had no idea who she was. I had no idea that she was about to change everything in my life. But as I stood in the hospital corridor, soaked to the bone, one thought repeated endlessly in my mind. I can't lose her, not after tonight. Hospitals have a strange silence, one that's heavier than the quiet of the outside world. That night, as I sat in the waiting area, drenched from the rain, I felt that silence pressing down on me. My clothes clung to my skin, cold and uncomfortable, but I barely noticed. My eyes kept darting toward the swinging doors the nurses had taken her through, my heart unwilling to calm down. I told myself I shouldn't feel this way. She was a stranger. I didn't know her name, where she lived, or anything about her. All I knew was that she had blue eyes that seemed to look past the storm and straight into me, and that was enough to keep me sitting there, restless, unable to leave. A nurse eventually approached me, clipboard in hand. "Sir, are you family?" she asked, her tone professional but curious. Family. The word felt sharp because I wasn't. "No, I just found her on the road. She had an accident. I couldn't leave her there," I explained. My voice was unsteady, as if admitting the truth made my presence here fragile. The nurse gave me a small smile, almost approving. "She's stable now. A mild concussion, a few bruises, nothing life-threatening. It was good you brought her in when you did." Relief washed over me like a wave. My shoulders sagged, and for the first time since the crash, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Can I see her?" I asked hesitantly. She tilted her head, studying me for a moment, then nodded. "Just for a little while. She needs rest." When I stepped into the dimly lit room, my pulse quickened. There she was, lying against the white sheets, her hair spread across the pillow like a dark halo, her skin pale but peaceful. She looked different without the chaos of the accident around her, fragile, almost angelic. I moved closer, careful not to disturb her, and sat in the chair beside her bed. For a while I simply watched her breathe. It was strange how someone I had met less than an hour ago could stir something so deep in me. Suddenly, her eyelids fluttered. My heart jumped as her blue eyes slowly opened, hazy and unfocused at first. When they finally found me, recognition flickered across them. "You," she whispered, her voice weak, yet soft like the rain outside. "Yes," I leaned forward, my voice trembling. "I was there. I brought you here. You're safe now." Her lips curved faintly, a fragile smile that seemed to hold gratitude and something more. Something I didn't dare name. She tried to sit up but winced, and I immediately placed a hand near her arm, though I didn't touch her. "Don't move, the doctor said you need rest." She looked at me again, as if studying me through the fog of her exhaustion. Why did you stop? No one else did." Her words trailed off, but her eyes never left mine. I swallowed, unsure how to answer. The truth was simple, yet it felt too vulnerable to admit. "I don't know," I finally said, my voice low. Maybe I was meant to." For a brief moment, silence hung between us. But it wasn't empty. It was charged, full of something unnamed. Her eyelids grew heavy again, and soon she slipped back into sleep, her breathing evening out. I sat there long after, the storm outside echoing faintly through the hospital walls. Something had shifted in me. I couldn't explain it, but I knew with a strange certainty that my life had just taken a turn. As I left her room, the nurse gave me a questioning look, as though she saw more than I wanted to admit. I didn't have answers, not even for myself. All I knew was that I couldn't walk away, not yet. That night, I told myself it was just concern for a stranger I'd helped. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't that simple. It was something more. Something I wasn't ready to name but couldn't ignore. The next morning I returned to the hospital. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her blue ones staring back at me, fragile but unforgettable. Something inside me had shifted since that storm, and no matter how unreasonable it seemed, I needed to see her again. When I walked into the reception area, a sudden commotion caught my attention. Nurses moved hurriedly, speaking in urgent, hushed tones. A tall man in a crisp suit was arguing with the doctor, his voice low but firm. "Do you know who she is? Do you understand the kind of resources we can provide? She shouldn't be here in a general ward." I paused, confused. Who were they talking about? A moment later, the door at the end of the corridor opened, and 2 more people in business attire walked in. They carried files, cell phones pressed to their ears, their eyes sharp and professional. It felt out of place in the quiet, sterile hospital hallway. And then I heard her name for the first time. "Ms. Evelyn Carter," one of the men said firmly to the nurse. "CEO of Carter Enterprises. We need her transferred to a private suite immediately. No one but approved staff is allowed near her." My stomach tightened. CEO, Carter Enterprises? I had heard that name before. It was everywhere in Washington. Real estate, tech, philanthropy. The company was worth billions. I blinked, my thoughts scrambling. The woman I had carried in my arms through the rain, the stranger I had stayed up worrying about, wasn't just anyone. She was someone powerful, untouchable. I stood there, feeling suddenly invisible as the group swept past me. The suited man barely glanced in my direction, though his expression suggested I was just another random bystander. I wanted to say something, to tell them I had been the one who found her, the one who saved her. But my voice caught in my throat. Still, I couldn't leave. Moments later, I found myself lingering near her new private suite, pretending to study the notice board on the wall. I didn't belong there, and I knew it. My shoes were still worn from too many miles of walking, my jacket frayed at the sleeves. I worked an ordinary job, lived an ordinary life. People like Evelyn Carter existed in glossy magazine covers and behind tinted limousine windows. Not in my world. And yet I couldn't forget the way she had looked at me last night. While I debated whether to slip away quietly, the door opened. A nurse stepped out carrying a tray. She recognized me from the night before and gave me a questioning look. "She's awake now," she said gently, lowering her voice. "She's been asking about the man who helped her." My heart jolted. She asked about me?" The nurse smiled faintly. "Go on, but just for a few minutes." I stepped inside, nerves coiling tight in my chest. The room was spacious, brighter than the one she'd been in last night, but all I saw was her. Evelyn sat propped up against the pillows, a soft blanket covering her. Even in recovery, she carried herself with quiet strength. But when her eyes found me, they softened. "You," she said, her voice steadier now. "You stayed." I managed to smile, though my pulse hammered in my ears. I couldn't just leave. She studied me for a long moment, as if trying to piece me together. "They told me you carried me through the rain. You didn't even know who I was." I shook my head. I didn't need to. Her lips curved into a small smile, but behind it I saw curiosity, maybe even disbelief. She was used to people treating her as a CEO, a name, a fortune. But I hadn't seen any of that when I looked at her. I had only seen her. And in that moment, I realized something that both terrified and thrilled me. Our worlds couldn't be further apart, but somehow, fate had forced them to collide. I didn't know if this was the beginning of something beautiful or something impossible. All I knew was that I wasn't ready to let go. Over the next few days, I found myself visiting Evelyn at the hospital more often than I had planned. At first, I told myself it was just to check in, to make sure she was recovering. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. There was something about her, something I couldn't walk away from. Each time I walked into her room, her eyes lit up in a way that unsettled me, yet pulled me closer. She would ask me about the storm that night, about what made me stop, about me. And though I tried to keep my answers short, she always managed to draw me out. It was strange. Someone so powerful, so used to being in control, listening to my ordinary stories as if they mattered. But the world around her was a reminder that she and I were not the same. Every time I stepped into her suite, I had to pass by assistants with tablets in hand, bodyguards in dark suits, and staff who eyed me with suspicion. I could feel their unspoken questions. Who is this man? Why is he here? One evening, when the sky outside the hospital glowed orange with the fading sun, I found her sitting up, a laptop open on her tray. She was in a soft sweater instead of the hospital gown, her hair brushed back, looking every bit the woman in charge. "You work even now?" I asked, raising an eyebrow as I set down the small cup of coffee I'd brought her. She smiled faintly. "Carter Enterprises doesn't exactly pause because I took a hit on the road." Her tone was light, but I could sense the weight behind it. She was someone who carried an empire on her shoulders. I sat down, feeling suddenly small in her presence. "I guess that's what it means to be you." Her eyes flicked to me. "And what does that mean exactly?" I hesitated. "Important, powerful, untouchable." She tilted her head, studying me with those piercing blue eyes. "Is that how you see me?" I shifted in my chair, unsure how to respond. The truth was, I didn't know how to see her. To me, she was still the girl from the rain, the fragile woman I had carried in my arms. But to the rest of the world, she was Evelyn Carter, CEO, billionaire, someone people admired and feared in equal measure. Before I could answer, the door opened. A tall man in a tailored suit entered. Her assistant, I assumed. He glanced at me briefly before turning to her. "Ms. Carter, the board is pushing for tomorrow's conference call. They insist on your input regarding the merger." She sighed, closing the laptop. "Fine, schedule it." He nodded, then cast another curious look at me before leaving. The silence that followed was heavy. Evelyn's eyes lingered on me, as if she could feel the gap widening between us. "That's my world," she said softly. "Always moving, always demanding. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to just step away." Her words surprised me. You mean live like the rest of us? I asked, half smiling. She nodded, her expression wistful. Yes. To walk down a street without people knowing my name. To have a conversation without wondering what someone wants from me. I leaned forward, my voice low. Last night when I saw you in that car, I didn't know your name. I didn't know your world. I just knew you were someone who needed me. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, something raw, something real. But just as quickly, she looked away. That night, as I walked home under the city lights, I couldn't shake the thought that no matter how much we connected in those quiet hospital moments, the gulf between us was too wide. She lived in a world of glass towers and boardrooms. I lived in a rented apartment and worked paycheck to paycheck. And yet, no matter how hard I tried to reason with myself, my heart whispered the same truth. I was already falling for her. By the time Evelyn was discharged from the hospital, I thought that might be the end of it. She would return to her glass towers, her meetings, her empire, and I would return to my ordinary life. But fate had other plans. A few days after she left the hospital, I received a call. "This is Evelyn Carter," the voice on the line said. Calm, steady, unmistakable. "I wanted to thank you properly. Could we meet?" For a moment, I just stood there in stunned silence. My mind scrambled for excuses, reasons why someone like her would want to see someone like me again. But the truth was, I wanted to see her too, more than I wanted to admit. We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe tucked away from the busy streets. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her at first. She wasn't dressed like a CEO, no sharp suit, no intimidating presence. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her hair falling loosely around her shoulders. For the first time, she looked ordinary, beautifully, achingly ordinary. "You came," she said, smiling as I sat across from her. "Of course," I replied, my voice lower than I intended. "I wouldn't miss it." We talked for hours, about her recovery, about my life, about little things that didn't seem important but somehow mattered. She asked about my job, my family, the books I like to read. And I listened as she confessed small pieces of herself she rarely shared with others. The pressure of running a company, the loneliness of not knowing who truly cared for her, the weight of always being watched. At one point, she laughed, really laughed, at some silly story I told about getting caught in the rain as a kid. The sound was soft, unguarded, and it made my chest tighten. She wasn't the CEO then. She was just Evelyn, sitting across from me, her blue eyes shining in the dim cafe light. That became the first of many meetings. Sometimes it was coffee, sometimes just a walk by the river at night when she wanted to escape the noise of her world. With each passing moment, I saw more of her. Not the powerful executive, but the woman who craved simplicity, who wanted to be seen for who she really was. And she saw me too. Not as someone beneath her, not as an outsider to her world, but as someone who listened without judgment, who cared without asking for anything in return. One evening, as we sat on a bench overlooking the city lights, the air crisp with the hint of autumn, she turned to me and asked softly, "Do you ever think about how strange this is?" I looked at her, my brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "You and me," she said. "We come from such different worlds. And yet, somehow, here we are." I let out a slow breath, my gaze lingering on the skyline. "Yeah, I think about it every time I'm with you." Her lips curved into a small, almost shy smile. "And does it scare you?" I hesitated before answering. "Honestly? Yes, but it doesn't stop me from wanting to be here." Our eyes met then, and for a heartbeat, the noise of the city faded away. The pull between us was undeniable, fragile but powerful like the electricity in the air before a storm. She didn't say anything more, and neither did I. But as we sat there side by side, our shoulders brushing ever so slightly, I knew we were both fighting the same truth. We were falling into something neither of us had planned for, something neither of us fully understood, something that felt dangerously close to love. Falling for Evelyn felt both inevitable and impossible. Every moment we spent together drew me deeper in, yet every reminder of her world pushed me further back. I kept telling myself not to cross the invisible line between us, but my heart ignored every warning. The cracks began to show one evening when she invited me to a charity gala hosted by her company. "It's not really my thing," she admitted, her voice apologetic. "But I have to be there. I'd like it if you came." I should have said no. I didn't belong in rooms filled with millionaires, senators, and celebrities. But the way she asked, hopeful, almost vulnerable, made it impossible to refuse. That night, as I walked into the grand ballroom, I felt painfully out of place. Chandeliers sparkled above, violins played softly, and people moved gracefully in tuxedos and gowns that probably cost more than my yearly rent. My suit was borrowed, a size too loose, and my shoes felt like lead against the polished marble floor. Evelyn looked breathtaking, of course. A navy dress that shimmered under the lights, her hair swept elegantly to one side. When she saw me, her smile was warm, genuine, as if my presence truly mattered in that glittering world. But not everyone welcomed me the same way. I noticed the stares first. Subtle, but unmistakable. Whispers followed, polite smiles that didn't reach the eyes. I caught words like ordinary, nobody, and even charity case muttered when they thought I wasn't listening. Each one felt like a blow I couldn't block. At one point, a man in his 50s, clearly wealthy, approached Evelyn with a glass of champagne. "Evelyn, darling, you never cease to amaze," he said smoothly before glancing at me. His smile thinned. "And who's this? A friend?" The way he said it made my skin burn. Evelyn introduced me without hesitation, but I saw the flicker in his eyes, dismissive, almost mocking. The rest of the evening blurred into forced conversations and strained smiles. By the time we left, I felt like a shadow beside her, my insecurities louder than ever. As we walked out into the cool night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Evelyn, do you see the way they look at me? Do you hear what they say?" She stopped, turning to face me. "Yes," she said quietly, "and I don't care." "But I do," I admitted, my voice rough. "I don't belong in your world. I can't give you what they expect, what you deserve." Her eyes softened, but there was steel beneath them. "What I deserve? You think I measure my life by the weight of a bank account or the price of a suit? Do you really think that's what matters to me?" I looked away, guilt knotting in my chest. "Maybe not to you, but it matters to them, and one day, it'll tear us apart." For a moment silence stretched between us, broken only by the distant hum of the city. Evelyn stepped closer, her hand brushing against mine. "The night you saved me, you didn't know who I was. You didn't hesitate. You didn't care about my name, my company, my world. You just cared about me. That's the only version of you I want." Her words struck deep, but my doubts lingered. Could love really survive in the storm between two worlds? Or was I setting myself up for heartbreak? That night, as I walked her to her car, I realized we were standing at a crossroads. She was willing to fight for us. But I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to fight my own fears. The days that followed the gala were heavy with silence. Evelyn called a few times, but I often let the phone ring until it stopped. Not because I didn't want to hear her voice. I did more than anything. But because every word from that night echoed in my head. I don't belong in her world. I buried myself in routine, hoping distance would help me forget the way her eyes had looked at me. Like I was the only person who saw her for who she truly was. But forgetting her was impossible. She lingered in my thoughts, in the sound of the rain, in every empty corner of my apartment. One evening, as I sat by my window, staring out at the city lights, a knock came at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there she was. Evelyn Carter, standing in the dim hallway of my building, wearing a simple coat, her hair loose, her expression both determined and vulnerable. "Evelyn?" My voice cracked with disbelief. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, her eyes sweeping across my modest living space. There was no judgment in her gaze, only a quiet resolve. "You've been avoiding me," she said softly. I swallowed hard, guilt rising in my throat. I thought maybe it was for the best. "For the best?" She took a step closer. "Do you think I don't know what people say about us? About you? I hear it too. But let me tell you something, and I need you to listen." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. "When I woke up in that hospital, the first face I saw was yours. Not a doctor, not an assistant, not a bodyguard. You. The man who carried me through the storm when no one else stopped. The man who didn't care about my name, my wealth, or my world. I tried to look away, but she caught my hand, holding it tightly. Do you understand? That night, you gave me something money can't buy. Safety, kindness, love without condition. That's what I've been searching for my whole life. Not deals, not mergers, not status. Just you. Her words broke through every wall I had built. My chest ached as I whispered, "But Evelyn, I'm nothing compared to you. I don't have—" She silenced me with a shake of her head. "Stop. You are everything I never knew I needed. Don't you see? I don't want someone who fits into my world. I want someone who makes me feel human in it." For the first time in weeks, I let myself really look at her. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the woman the world admired. Just Evelyn, the woman whose blue eyes had changed my life on a rainy night in Washington. Something in me broke then, in the best possible way. All the doubts, the fear, the insecurities, they didn't matter anymore. I pulled her into my arms, holding her as if letting go would mean losing her forever. She melted into me, her heartbeat quick and steady against mine. "I love you," she whispered, her voice muffled against my chest. The words stunned me, yet felt like the most natural truth in the world. I tightened my arms around her, my own voice shaking. "I love you too, Evelyn. From the moment I saw you, I think I always did." Outside, the rain began to fall again, tapping softly against the windows. It was as if the city itself was reminding us of where it all began, that stormy night when fate decided our paths should collide. From that day forward, nothing was the same. Yes, her world was still vast and powerful, and mine was still simple. But together, we found something neither of us had known we were missing. Love, not defined by wealth or status, but by two hearts that refused to let go. And as I held her that night, with the rain washing the city clean outside, I realized something with absolute certainty. Destiny hadn't just stopped my steps that night, it had given me the love of my life.